Welcome to Jay Bahari Podcast, where storytelling awakens the soul. Each episode, we journey beyond the surface, into realms where myth meets memory, and every story is a mirror waiting to be remembered. Here, we don't just tell tales, we breathe life into them. From a hero that protects the weak, and stories about forgotten wisdom, to stories that stir the soul and crack open the heart, this is a space for seekers, mystics, wanderers, and those ready to rise from their darkness into the light. So close your eyes, open your mind, and let the story begin.
Rise from thy darkness into the light. A story inspired by the Emerald Tablets. In a forgotten land, where the stars whispered secrets and the wind carried ancient names, there lived a boy named Tavian. He had no memory of where he came from, only that he was born beneath a sky that never showed the sun. The world around him was veiled in twilight, a place of half-truths, of faded echoes and fractured dreams. The people there shuffled through life like shadows, their eyes dim, their words hollow. Tavian always felt something stirring in his chest, like a flame smothered beneath layers of ash. Some called it madness. Others said it was longing. But Tavian knew, deep in his bones, it was memory. One night, while wandering beyond the edge of the village, Tavian found an ancient doorway carved into a blackened stone cliff. Symbols older than time itself glowed faintly along the archway, pulsing like the beat of a distant heart. As he touched the stone, a voice, not loud, but eternal, spoke in his mind. Rise from thy darkness into the light. He stepped through. The world inside the doorway was unlike anything he had known. It was neither dream nor waking life, it was truth. A vast hall stretched before him, lined with emerald walls that shimmered with scenes of stars being born, of souls dancing through dimensions, of light pouring into the vessels of men. There, waiting in the center, stood a being robed in gold, eyes like suns. "You have heard the call," the being said. Tavian fell to his knees. "I don't understand. I've always felt lost." The being stepped forward, placing a hand over Tavian's heart. "You were never lost, only asleep. The darkness was not your enemy, it was your womb. But now, it is time to awaken." The walls of the hall vibrated with ancient words. Man is a flame bound to a mountain of clay. But the flame remembers. With those words, Tavian felt the ash around his inner fire begin to fall away. Memories, not of this life, but of before, rushed into him. He saw himself as light, as thought, as a traveler of realms. He saw the fall into form, the forgetting, the slumber. Tears streamed down his face, not of sorrow, but of remembrance. "I remember," he whispered. The golden being smiled. "Then rise. Rise not as who you thought you were, but as who you truly are." Tavian stood. The darkness within him unraveled like mist in the morning sun. He glowed, not with borrowed light, but with his own. The same light that birthed stars, the same that pulsed through the tablets of old. He stepped out of the hall. The sky above his world was no longer dim. The sun had returned. And behind him, carved into the stone for all who would one day follow, were the words. "Rise from the darkness into the light." Tavian walked through his village, no longer hidden in twilight. The sun rose now, not from the horizon, but from within him. Wherever he stepped, color returned to the earth. Flowers he had never seen before bloomed in his wake. People stared, some in awe, others in fear. A few dropped to their knees, not to worship, but because their souls trembled at the memory that stirred within them. But not all were ready. The elders, keepers of the old silence, approached him. Their robes were heavy with dust, their eyes wary. "You bring change," said the oldest, his voice like dry leaves. "Change brings chaos." "I bring light," Tavian replied gently. "And it only feels like chaos to those who have made peace with the dark." They tried to silence him. Tried to bind his hands with old laws, wrap his words in fear, bury his light with reason. But Tavian no longer belonged to their world of sleeping souls. He had remembered. That night, Tavian stood on the hill overlooking the village. The stars above shimmered like the eyes of ancient watchers. From the folds of his robe, he pulled a small emerald tablet, one of many scattered across realms. It hummed with life, etched with symbols that danced when gazed upon. As he touched it, he heard the voice again, deeper now, familiar. "The light is not to be carried. It is to be awakened in others." And so Tavian began to teach. He didn't speak of gods or dogma. He simply reminded people who they truly were. He asked questions no one had dared to ask. What lies behind your eyes? What dream did you forget when you were born? Who were you before your name? Some wept. Some ran. But a few began to glow. Not overnight, but through a quiet revolution of souls. Fires were no longer feared, they were lit in hearts. Children played beneath the full sun. The old rituals gave way to real connection. The people no longer prayed to the sky. They listened to it. And then, one morning, Tavian stood once more at the stone doorway. The symbols pulsed, alive and welcoming. But he did not enter. Instead, he placed the emerald tablet at the threshold. A gift for the next seeker. A seed for the next awakening. Above the doorway, a new line now glowed. Let the one who remembers guide the one who sleeps. Tavian turned from the doorway, walking toward the rising sun, not to leave, but to carry light to other darkened lands. His journey had only just begun. Tavian traveled far beyond his homeland, guided not by maps but by memory. Not the memory of this life, but of others, long buried beneath the dust of time. He followed the pulse of light like a thread woven through the fabric of the world. But light, once awakened, stirs more than just wonder. It stirs resistance. In the desert lands beyond the crystalline valleys, Tavian entered a city made of obsidian towers and silent laws. The people there did not speak freely. Their eyes were dimmed by a subtle haze. Above them, great statues loomed, cold-faced, unmoving, carved in the likeness of forgotten kings. Here, the light was feared. Here, the keepers of the veil ruled. They were not monsters, no claws or fangs. They were soft-spoken, calm, wise-seeming. They wore robes of silver gray and walked with measured grace. But they did not seek truth. They sought order, the kind that suffocates. They had long since sealed away their inner flames, trading awakening for control. When Tavian spoke, they listened. And then they smiled. "We honor your journey, traveler," said one, with eyes like mirrors. "But peace is kept here by shadows. Let the people sleep. Dreams are kinder than truth." Tavian's voice was calm, but his soul burned. Peace without light is not peace. It's numbness. I will not let them forget. You will, or you will be silenced. And with that, the veil descended. They cast Tavian into the chamber of forgetting, a place deep beneath the city where echoes fed on thought and time had no shape. For days, or years, he sat in stillness, as illusions tried to wrap around him like vines. Voices whispered, "There is no light. There is no you. Rest, and let the dream take you." But Tavian had been to the hall of the tablets. He had remembered. And memory is a fire no darkness can swallow. He reached inward, beyond thought, beyond form, into the core of his being. And there it was, the light. Quiet. Patient. Eternal. He breathed once, and it ignited. Tavian rose from the chamber, glowing with a radiance that no wall could contain. The obsidian towers trembled. The keepers gathered, hands raised, not in worship, but in fear. "It is not me you fear," Tavian said, voice ringing like a bell. "It is yourselves." And then something unexpected happened. One of the keepers, an elder woman with lines of sorrow etched in her face, stepped forward. Her hands trembled as she whispered, "I remember." Her robe faded from gray to white. She began to glow. The awakening spread like dawn. Not all followed. Some ran deeper into the shadows. But many remembered. The veil lifted, not by force, but by truth. And etched into the wall of the chamber where Tavian had once sat, a new phrase now shimmered. The light cannot be contained. It only waits to be claimed. Tavian continued his journey, not as a lone flame, but as the spark of a rising fire. A brotherhood and sisterhood of the awakened began to form. Not a religion, not a rule, but a remembrance.
Want to dive deeper? Grab an ebook on Etsy or a paperback on Amazon. You can also reach Jay Bahari by clicking on chat line for instant video call, instant audio call, and instant text chat, or by appointment. If you're hooked on JCat Adventures, show your support today.
And in the night sky, where once there was only silence, now constellations danced with purpose, maps not of stars, but of souls finding their way home. The cities were waking. The songs of memory returned to the earth like birds after a long winter. Tavian walked among the awakened not as a savior, but as a reflection, each person he touched now seeing themselves more clearly. The emerald tablets, once scattered in secrecy, began to pulse across the lands, calling out to those ready to listen. And then, the call stopped. A silence, not peaceful, but absolute, fell across the dreamscape of the world. It was not darkness. It was something before darkness. The elders who remembered the first times whispered of it in riddles. Beyond light and shadow lies the void, the womb of all forgetting. Beware, for even memory cannot walk there unshaken. Tavian knew. He had to go. At the edge of the world stood a mountain that pierced the sky. Not made of stone, but of stillness. It had no name, for names cannot exist in the place it leads to. Tavian climbed. Each step stripped away what he thought he was, his victories, his fears, even his light. The higher he rose, the more silent he became, until only awareness remained. At the summit, he found no doorway. Only a choice. A whisper. To awaken all, you must face what sleeps in you still. He stepped forward, and fell inward. The void. There was no light. No sound. No Tavian. Only the void. Here, time had no rhythm. Here, even truth had no voice. Tavian drifted through a sea of unbeing, a place untouched by creation. The emerald tablets had warned of this, not with fear, but reverence. Beware the great forgetting, for even gods have slept beneath its veil. Within the void, Tavian faced what no enemy had ever shown him. Himself. Before the awakening. Before the light. The boy who doubted. The man who feared. The seeker who nearly gave up. All versions of him stood in silence, eyes full of questions. Then came the final echo. A voice made not of words but of knowing. If you would bring light to all, you must love even the parts that once resisted it. Tavian wept, not in pain, but in acceptance. And that was the key. From the heart of the void, Tavian did not escape, he emerged. Not as flame, but as source. He carried with him a silence deeper than peace, a stillness that could hold both shadow and light without judgment. This was not the end of awakening, it was its completion. He returned to the world. Different. Those who saw him could no longer describe him. He was not just man, not just light. He was reminder incarnate. And etched now into the final emerald tablet, one that appeared only upon his return, were the closing words. There is no fear in the void. Only the place where God listens. Rise not only from darkness, but from division. You are not light alone. You are the all. The world had changed. Not through fire, not through force, but through remembrance. The cities that once echoed with silence now sang with voices awakened. The skies shimmered with color unseen for centuries. Children were born with knowing eyes. Old wounds healed, not by forgetting the pain, but by remembering the purpose behind it. And Tavian. Tavian no longer walked ahead of the people. He walked among them. From the fragments of the emerald tablets, a new path unfolded, not a religion, not a rule book, but a living memory. The teachings were passed not in books, but through presence. Through story. Through the way one looked into another's eyes and saw them fully. Tavian began planting seeds, not in soil, but in souls. He would find someone lost, broken, forgotten, and he would simply say, "You are not what happened to you. You are what's been waiting to wake up through you." And they would begin to glow. It spread. From city to forest, from mountain to market, from dreamers to skeptics, the light moved like a tide, quietly but unstoppably. The veil that once ruled the world became transparent. The keepers of the old order, those who had clung to silence, now stood side by side with the awakened, not as enemies, but as equals returning home. Even the void was no longer feared. It became known as the cradle, the dark place where light was born new. Years passed. One evening, as the golden sun dipped below the hills, Tavian sat beneath a tree in the center of the city, now called Solara, meaning the place of remembering. Children gathered around him, as they always did. "Tell us again," one said, eyes wide. "About the tablets?" Another asked. Tavian smiled, not with pride, but with peace. "I will tell you something greater," he said. "Not about the tablets, but about you." He pointed to their hearts. "You are the next tablet. You are the light that came here to remember itself. The world doesn't need more seekers, it needs more awakeners. So go and remind it gently." And they did. The final words. Tavian's story became legend, not because he conquered, but because he illuminated. His legacy was not a name etched in stone, but a feeling that lived in people's bones. Some say he eventually walked beyond the stars, returning to where the light first sang. Others say he simply became the breeze that whispers to the soul still sleeping, saying, "You were never lost. You only forgot. But now, you remember." And etched upon the final emerald tablet, placed at the center of Solara, visible only to those with open hearts, was the closing truth. Rise and rise again, until the light you seek is the light you give. For the journey was never to become the light. It was to remember that you already are.
And so, the story folds its wings for now. But its echo lives on in you. Thank you for walking this path with Jay Bahari, for listening with an open heart, and for remembering the magic that still lives beneath the noise of the world. If today's story stirred something in you, share it. Let the ripple move. Let the remembering spread. You are not just a listener here. You are part of the tale.
Breaking down the wall. 60 years deep, but his spirit is young. Every heart is strong. From the binary beats to the pixelated sky, soaring high. He's all